Boy X, page 255, just 54 minutes left until shutdown. Kane and the others were halfway down the cliff road when Ash heard the rhythmic thudding of the helicopter. Thugga, 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 thugga. Sorry. The radio crackled into life and Thorne's calm voice slid over the bridge. Almost there, Ash. Sit tight. Ash was cross-legged on the deck with the messenger bag and the survival pack open. The contents, including Pierce's keycard, were spread out in front of him. 2 silver canisters, like thermos flasks, stood side by side with the tops removed. Inside each one was a pull-up rack containing 4 slim injection guns filled with clear liquid. 4 were labeled Kronos, and 4 were labeled Zeus. There was a flash drive inside each canister, presumably containing Mom's notes detailing how to create the virus and its cure. Once closed, the canisters would be sealed tight, totally shockproof and water-resistant. As he arranged the contents of each bag and repacked them, Ash kept looking up the cliff road and then to the sky as the sound of the helicopter grew closer and closer. Tears were rolling down his cheeks because he knew he couldn't save Mom. He had done everything he could to help her and the others trapped in the lab, but he felt certain now that the helicopter wasn't coming to help them. Everything he had done was for nothing. Mom and the others would die. In a few minutes, Kane and Thorne would be here. Then he, too, would die. All he could do now was fulfill Mom's wish. Destroy Kronos. I told you, the voice in his head sneered. I told you you were useless. The helicopter thundered over the cliff top. It flew out across the sea, then turned and reduced speed as it came back toward the boat. Ash watched it descend, rippling the water in the rotor's downdraft. When it had dropped to a height almost level with the upper deck of the boat, the helicopter dipped its nose and moved forward slowly, coming to a halt just several feet from the Olympian. I said it wouldn't take long, Thorne's voice crackled from the radio. You did well. Ash could just about make out the pilot through the cockpit glass, though the sun reflected from it and shone in his face. He stood and put up a hand to protect himself from the rush of whirling air, then glanced back at the cliff road to see Kane and the others nearing the bottom. The helicopter rotated to the left so it was sideways onto the boat. The door drew back to reveal the inside of the aircraft, complete with a mounted minigun. A man Ash didn't recognize threw out a rope ladder, then disappeared from view. When he returned to the door, Thorne was with him, one arm over his shoulder. His leg was encased in a white mesh cast. In his left hand, he held the radio that he now put to his mouth. You need to come aboard, Thorne shouted into the mouthpiece. You have the materials Pierce took, right? Swim to the ladder, and we'll get you out of here. I want to know what's going on. Who are you? Did you kill my dad? Ash had to know it wasn't his fault, that it wasn't Mom's fault. Who are you? I already told you. Ash shook his head. I don't believe you. I want the truth. We haven't got time for this, Thorne said. Swim out to the ladder. The truth, Ash shouted. He was afraid and frustrated. This wasn't the way he wanted this to happen. Thorne was supposed to tell him everything, give Ash a reason to trust or distrust him, to make some sense of what was happening. Thorne moved the radio from his mouth and spoke to the man who was supporting him. The man nodded and helped Thorne to sit down, then moved away and took up position behind the mounted minigun. He swung it around to point toward the cliff road and fired a single quick burst. The pounding shots thundered over the sound of the helicopter, and the empty cartridges spilled from the weapon. They fell to the sea like sparkling metal rain. Ash whipped around to see Kane and the others come to a sudden halt and dropped to the ground. The minigun fired again, kicking up dirt just several feet from Isabel. Come aboard, and I'll let your friend live, Thorne said into the radio. Maybe I could use a kid like you. Ash shook his head again. Thorne had just confirmed everything. He wasn't here to help. Ash couldn't trust him. Fair enough. Then I just want Kronos and Zeus. Nothing else. Ash put a protective hand on the messenger bag that hung at his side. He took a step back, and Thorn leaned over, yelling to the pilot. The helicopter swung closer to the rotor, so the rotors were spinning not far from the top of the boat. Thorn was near Ash now, their eyes almost level. He nodded to the minigunner, who fired another burst in Isabel's direction, and then he lifted the radio once more. I don't have time for this. Throw the bag up here, and we'll call it a day. Ash looked down at the bag, drawing Thorn's attention. That's it. That's all you have to do. All you have to do is throw it into the helicopter. Then this will all be over. Don't make me come and get it. Ash grabbed the strap and pulled the bag over his head. I'm losing my patience. Throw the bag to me now, or I'll kill you and everyone else. And the first thing I'll do when I leave here is find every single one of your friends and relatives and kill them too. Is that what you want? Ash gripped the bag tight in his right hand and drew back his arm. That's it. Throw it. Throw it now. Ash had no other choice. Whoever Thorn was, Ash had seen the bodies in the biosphere. He had seen what Thorn had done to those guards, and he had heard what Pierce had said about him. He'll gut us. Ash realized he had been right to be afraid of Thorn, and knew he couldn't trust anything he said, except for his promise to kill Isabel. Ash had heard the truth in Thorn's voice when he had said that. So he threw it. He hefted the messenger bag as hard as he could toward the helicopter's door, so that it sailed right past Thorn and disappeared into the darkness of the interior. Almost immediately, Thorn signaled to the pilot, and the helicopter began to move away from the boat, gaining height. The machine gunner remained in position, but took his eye off the target as he watched Thorn turn and shuffle into the aircraft to retrieve the bag. Thorn, Ash spoke into the radio. What is it? You'll never take Kronos off this island. What? What are you talking about? Ash didn't wait to hear anything else. Instead, he whirled around and grabbed the Hex 13 handset from the dashboard behind him. The heavy white dot tracing the letter Z was still ghosting across the screen. Ash put a finger to it and copied the symbol as fast as he could. Inside the helicopter cabin, the last of the Hex 13 ignited in a searing ball of orange flame and black smoke that flashed outward through the door, propelling the burning minigunner into the sea. The aircraft began to move backward, jerking left and then right with no one to control it. The pilot was screaming, his hair and clothes on fire, and when the helicopter's tail struck the water, excuse me, the whole thing tipped and began drifting towards the boat, blades coming at Ash like a vicious murder weapon. Whoomp, whoomp, whoomp. Ash grabbed Thorn's survival pack and slipped it over his head as he ran to the steps and jumped to the deck. He dived over the gunwale into the jetty, hitting the dry boards in a roll. Then he was on his feet again, sprinting towards the beach. Behind him, there was an awesome crunch as the blades made contact with the rear of the boat. They sheared off, spinning over Ash's head and clattering onto the far end of the jetty close to the sand. There was a squealing of metal on metal as the helicopter slammed down into the stern of the boat. Then the two vehicles erupted in a blast of flame and thick gray-black smoke. Ash was lifted off his feet and blown from the jetty toward the swirling sea. He flipped around, falling backwards, smashing hard into the waves. Something sharp and metal flashed toward him in the blink of an eye. He had just enough time to register that it was there before it smashed across his forehead, cutting right to the bone as it sliced through his eyebrow and down into his cheek. Pain seared through his face as water rushed around him, and he sank under the waves. Eyes open, he stared at the cloud of blood billowing from his wounds. He sank down and down, deeper and deeper. The world began to darken. There was no sound. Ash's lungs collapsed as he disappeared, and then he saw something rushing toward him. something large falling from above, smashing into the water and sinking, pushing him deeper, pinning him to the seabed.